Happy Friday, everyone. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Lee in Seoul. Let's get started with a glimpse of today's highlights. The Korean economy grew at a faster than expected pace in the first quarter of this year, reinforcing the government's view that the local economy is on its way to recovery. As more people turn to internet shopping, brick-and-mortar stores are transforming themselves to win back the hearts of their customers. These stories and more coming right up. The Korean economy grew a seasonally adjusted 1.1% during the first quarter, thanks to stronger figures in not only exports, but also in investments in the construction sector. Our Kim Ji-yeon starts us off.
The Bank of Korea said Friday the local economy grew 1.1% during the first 3 months of the year compared to the previous quarter, and says it's the highest growth rate in 6 quarters. It beat the BOK's estimate made in April by 0.2 percentage points. It also marks the first time quarterly growth has exceeded 1% since the third quarter of 2015. The Bank of Korea attributed the increase in large part to the manufacturing sector, which grew more than 2% from the previous quarter, thanks to increased production of semiconductors and machinery. The construction sector also surged by more than 5%. All the retail, food, and lodging grew more slowly than before. An increase in home rentals and real estate transactions boosted the services sector overall by 0.2%. Another boost to growth, according to the BOK, was a jump in investment, particularly in sectors related to construction, intellectual property, and software, as well as a rise in the country's exports. Friday's quarterly growth estimate supports the BOK's projection that it'll raise its growth outlook for the local economy this year from the current 2.6%. Kim Ji-yeon, Business Daily.
A population that's rapidly getting grayer, a widening gap between high and low income earners, and structural reforms. These are some of the biggest risks facing the Korean economy, according to Bank of Korea Governor Lee Ju-yeol, who spoke on Friday to the heads of the country's major commercial banks. He also emphasized that the need for growth that's inclusive, saying that while technological innovation is a must, it's also important not to leave any senior citizens behind as banks increasingly move their services into the digital world. The Korean equity market finished the week with a strong performance. A global stock market rally led by better economic data helped lift the sentiment. And to give us a wrap-up of this week's stock market action, we're now joined by our markets contributor, Choi Jin-seok. Hello, Jin-seok.
Happy Friday.
All right, so how are things looking on the last day of trading?
Both the Kospi and the Kosdaq market finished the week with a strong performance. The Kospi rose by 1.1% to close at 2371.72, while the Kosdaq followed with an uptick of 0.7% to close at 658. The Kospi had been stuck in consolidation mode for the last 3 sessions as investors decided to wait and see. However, the U.S. market overnight rose sharply, with all 3 indexes breaking record highs. Better than expected job numbers and manufacturing data helped lift sentiment throughout global markets, and that was a positive factor in the Korean market too. Foreign investors came back into the Kospi for the first time in 4 sessions as well. Although they were the only net buyers on the market, the numbers of shares foreigners bought were about the same as what all other investors sold combined. By sector, financials, technology, and communications led the way in the rally, while transportation, chemicals, and gas and utilities were weak.
Now, expectations have been raised for robust employment data reported tonight, leading investors to think that a rate hike in June now seems to be a definite fact.
That's right. Employment gains in the U.S. private sector rebounded handily in May, adding more than 250,000 jobs, well above the market expectations of around 170,000. The Labor Department will release its monthly report tonight, and expectations are high because ADP numbers are, for the most part, in sync with non-farm payroll data from the department. The ISM Manufacturing Index stood at 54.9, which is an improvement on the previous month's data and projections. Experts and investors had been concerned over a slowdown in the G2 countries' manufacturing sector, so global markets were pretty happy with the results. CME Fed Watch, a futures market betting on future rate hikes, now shows a 91.2% possibility of a hike in June. However, if economic conditions continue to support the Federal Reserve's policy normalization, then markets can absorb the spillover effects of future rate hikes.
Then how was the overall weekly performance of the Kospi? I mean, other than today's session, the Kospi had performed relatively weakly throughout the week.
Exactly. On a weekly basis, the Kospi was mostly flat, rising by a small margin, while the Kosdaq surged by more than 1%. The Kospi has suffered losses about 0.5%, excluding today's session. Foreign investors were the only net sellers on the Kospi on a weekly basis, but they unloaded larger amounts of shares than those of both retail investors and institutions. Falling oil prices also hurt sentiment among foreigners. By sector, display, distribution, and pharmaceuticals and biotechnology performed strongly, while securities, hardware, and steel and non-steel materials performed relatively weakly.
Now moving on to broader Asian equity markets, the Chinese equity market performed relatively weakly in May. So can it counter this trend in this month?
Right. Starting from yesterday, the Shanghai market has been somewhat sluggish for 2 consecutive sessions as well. The Caixin Manufacturing Index showed a contraction in the country's manufacturing sector for the first time in 11 months, and this spooked the market. The Chinese market underperformed other global markets in May. The Shanghai Composite Index fell by more than 1%, while the Shenzhen Index plummeted by more than 3.5%. There are both positive and negative factors in June, including a U.S. rate hike, a liquidity crunch, and the MSCI inclusion of A shares. Given all these catalysts, experts are cautiously optimistic about China's stock market in June. First, concerns over more regulations in the country's financial industry have now been mitigated. Second, Chinese authorities don't seem to allow the market to go straight down. Lastly, investors have recently been buying undervalued stocks.
Then what about the monthly performance and future predictions of the Japanese equity market? I mean, the market surpassed an important resistance level during today's session.
Right. As we've noted many times, Japanese shares tend to be more sensitive to the movements of global markets. The Nikkei 225 index surpassed the 20,000 mark during today's session for the first time since December of 2015, helped by a global market rally overnight. The Nikkei showed a strong performance throughout last month as well, rising by more than 2.3%. In early May, major investment banks, including Morgan Stanley, Citigroup, and AMP Capital, called for a rally in the Japanese market, citing better economic conditions. The market has been somewhat sluggish ever since, but investors can now tell that the market is still undervalued. Therefore, experts and investors are still expected to pay a lot of attention to the Japanese market going forward.
All right, thank you so much for the wrap-up today.
Thank you.
President Moon's defective transition team is working to reassign some government functions, but trade negotiations will likely remain within the purview of the Ministry of Trade, Industry, and Energy. It had been considering handing over trade to the Foreign Ministry. At a regular briefing on Wednesday, Park Kwang-on, spokesperson of the State Affairs Planning Advisory Committee, said while it's highly likely that trade will stay where it is, there are other factors to consider. The committee is set to announce a final decision early next week. The Korean government has made an official response to an investigation in the U.S. over whether imports of Korean steel are a threat to U.S. national security. The Ministry of Trade, Industry, and Energy said Friday that it has provided the U.S. Commerce Department with a written opinion on Wednesday that no, they're not a threat. Companies like Hyundai Steel claim that, in fact, Korean steel products strengthen the competitiveness of the U.S. market where they're used in car manufacturing. Next week, Korea's Commerce Ministry plans to meet with major steel companies like POSCO and Hyundai Steel to discuss the trends reported in the U.S. Commerce Department's survey and ready themselves for future responses. Korea's steel industry does ultimately expect some restrictions to remain, so companies are preparing for that outcome. U.S. President Donald Trump has confirmed that Washington is walking away from the Paris Climate Accord, and his decision was met with condemnation from inside and outside of the United States. Our Noram has the story.
As president, I can put no other consideration before the well-being of American citizens. Thus, as of today, the United States will cease all implementation of the non-binding Paris Accord and the draconian financial and economic burdens the agreement imposes on our country.
The widely expected announcement is part of Mr. Trump's America First policy. He said the exit from the 2015 agreement was to help the country's vital industries, especially oil and coal, but added he is willing to work with the Democrats to seek ways to negotiate a better deal for the United States.
I'm willing to immediately work with Democratic leaders to either negotiate our way back into Paris under the terms that are fair to the United States and its workers, or to negotiate a new deal that protects our country and its taxpayers. So if the obstructionists want to get together with me, let's make them non-obstructionists.
He blamed the deal reached by nearly 200 countries 2 years ago of being more favorable to economies like China and India, and that it was hurting American jobs. While the announcement was welcomed by Trump's supporters, it brought widespread criticism, with former President Barack Obama immediately releasing a statement. He said that even as the Trump administration joins a handful of nations that reject the future, he is confident that cities and businesses will step up to lead the way to protect for future generations. Mayors of 61 U.S. cities have joined together to reaffirm their commitment to the Paris deal, pushing for new action to tackle global warming and adhere to guidelines stipulated in the accord. Also, the governors of Washington State, New York, and California have announced the formation of the United States Climate Alliance, a coalition that will convene U.S. states committed to upholding the agreement. The leaders of France, Germany, and Italy said the Paris deal will not be renegotiated, vowing to push ahead with it, and the EU and China are set to agree on a joint statement backing the agreement. Noaram, Business Daily.
Korea's Jeju Island is hosting the annual Jeju Forum through Saturday, where experts take a broad look at how to achieve peace and prosperity here in Asia. And this year's forum opened under the theme of sharing a common vision of Asia's future. Our Connie Kim takes us there.
It's a small resort island off the southern coast of the Korean peninsula. But around this time of the year, thousands of scholars from around the world and several former heads of states gather here in Jeju. This year's event is all the more important in these uncertain times domestically and globally. The opening ceremony kicked off with South Korean President Moon Jae-in describing the peaceful Korean peninsula he envisions.
한반도의 영구적인 평화와 번영을 위한 완전히 새로운 구상, 담대한 실천을 시작할 것입니다. 국제사회와 협력하겠습니다. 미국, 중국 등 관련국들과 함께 북한을 설득하고 압박하여 대화의 장으로 이끌고 북핵 문제 해결과 남북 및 북미 관계 개선을 함께 이뤄내겠습니다.
Security issues are among the many topics being addressed at the three-day event, with former U.S. Vice President Al Gore, who served in the Clinton administration, highlighting the wide range of discussions that he says needs to happen.
This forum has become, over the years, a truly exemplary gathering for a multilateral dialogue on peace and prosperity, with a focus on diplomacy and its task in providing a space for international collaboration throughout East Asia and Asia on foreign policy issues and environmental issues, security issues, and economic issues.
As part of that, former leaders from Indonesia, Portugal, and Mongolia share their thoughts on building prosperity, calling for cooperation from outside of Asia.
The North Korea nuclear question cannot be solved without the coordination between the United States and China. In this context, it is my firm belief that in its cooperation between East Asia countries and the European Union may contribute to security and prosperity in the region.
The forum's organizing committee hopes the event can serve as a platform for global peace where the visions and issues of the future can be shared and addressed together. Connie Kim, Business Daily, Jeju.
The United Nations is on a mission to achieve sustainable development for the world by the year 2030. And technology is playing a bigger role in figuring out how to accomplish that. So this week, experts on the Asia-Pacific region gathered in the Korean city of Songdo to discuss the potential humanitarian uses of the huge amounts of information now at our fingertips. Our Oh Soo-young has more.
According to IBM, people create a mind-boggling 2.5 quintillion bytes of data every single day. So much that almost all the data in the world was created in just the last 2 years. Development experts believe this capacity to collect information about our world points to a virtually limitless potential to improve the quality of life for the billions of people left behind by social and economic progress.
In addition to the traditional data collection and dissemination, like from sample surveys, censuses, from government registrations, now there's the big data, like satellite imageries, the use of mobile phones, internet, electricity bills, water, all these things, as well as methods for compiling, analyzing, presenting such data. So what we are trying to do is to find a way to connect the two.
At a forum hosted jointly by the UN's Commission for the Asia and the Pacific and Statistics Korea, experts on the region discussed how governments should make use of developments in data science, like machine learning and artificial intelligence, to achieve the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. One of the most fundamental roles of data they highlighted was the use of national statistics to keep tabs on progress.
Under the 17 SGDs, there are around 230 specific indices that we measure. So what we do is categorize our data on various aspects of socioeconomic development and also develop new indices that we need. This helps keep track of how Korea is doing in terms of achieving the goals and provides a basis for deciding what actions need to be taken.
Experts say analyses of the data should be used to create more effective policies and programs. Examples would be helping to predict disasters in agriculture by installing data sensors, improving public infrastructure and education, and providing healthcare services in remote areas.
One of the key factors about Sustainable Development Goals is not leaving anyone behind. In other words, it is particularly relevant to Asia-Pacific region, where we have about 400 million people still in poverty, and a lot of other social issues.
Experts say to turn bytes of data into meaningful resources for development, governments must first set up a quality management system. This means ensuring access to relevant and timely data, as well as strengthening the capacity to read and analyse the information. Oh Soo-young, Business Daily.
Korea's imports of coffee reached a new high last year on the country's seemingly insatiable demand for the brew. Data from the Korea Customs Service show that total inbound shipments of coffee products, including beans, mixes, and capsules as of a year's end, came to 159,000 tons, the biggest amount on record, and a jump of 10.7% from the year before. Demand for roasted beans at big coffee shop chains, combined with popular specialty drinks like cold brew, saw roasted bean imports shoot up 23.2% to 10,000 tons and green beans 10.3% to 143,000 tons. The coffee craze has continued into this year, with overall imports in Q1 reaching 40,000 tons, up 7% higher than Q1 of last year. Since 2012, coffee consumption here in Korea has risen by an annual average of 7%. And get this, last year it was enough for 377 cups per person. Online shopping or banking only takes a click of a mouse, which is why many people prefer doing things on the web instead of visiting brick-and-mortar stores. So in the face of dwindling customers, offline stores are reinventing themselves to stay afloat and set themselves apart. Take a look.
This mega shopping mall in Jamsil, Seoul draws in up to 30 million visitors annually. And there is a new attraction on the underground level. With the sweet aroma of coffee and donuts, you would hardly think it was a bank. The so-called Bakery in Branch was launched in June last year. Taking customers' long wait time at the bank into account, it offers coffee and donuts to help people pass the time. It also has longer operating hours until 9 p.m. for extra convenience.
Having a donut shop and a bank in one place is pretty new, and I like that you can enjoy a donut and a drink while waiting for your turn.
Many of our clients prefer online transactions these days, so we wanted to increase the points of contact with them by providing unique services. It's definitely creating more synergy. More customers come, and there are more foreign visitors too.
Mobile banking transactions in Korea have seen explosive growth in the recent years. Now, every 8 out of 10 people take care of their banking online. Offline banks are particularly under threat now with the introduction of internet-only banks. Every year, the number of physical branches has been plunging. Compared to online banking, where customers log on for transactions only, offline branches profit from various financial products they introduce. That's why banks are looking to bring customers back to their brick-and-mortar stores. Now there are banks in Korea that are combined with cafes or performance spaces.
When it comes to banking, person-to-person interaction is crucial in ensuring the transaction has gone through. So if banks provide customers with a good experience at their branches, it leaves a lasting impression, and there's a much better chance they will stay with that bank online as well. So it turns into long-term loyalty.
Bookstores are also struggling as nearly twice the number of customers buy books online compared to offline. But more customers are gradually returning to brick-and-mortar stores to enjoy books and much more. At this large chain bookstore, visitors can explore various personal interests with areas for lifestyle goods, beauty products, and a kids' cafe all in one location, and with books to enjoy as well. The biggest asset of offline bookstores is in personal interaction. Experts can consult customers to give personalized recommendations, and customers can enjoy the luxury of browsing around before heading over to checkout.
I like that you can actually look at the books here before you buy them, and there's a huge variety.
This is a multicultural space where customers can enjoy culture, arts, and shopping all in one go. We've been receiving positive feedback not only from customers in their 20s, but families as well.
This local bookstore nearly closed down due to stiff competition with online stores. For the last 3 years, it has undergone renovations to build a seminar room where lectures on the humanities and arts are held, becoming a new culture space in the neighborhood. Not only that, visitors can enjoy a cafe and an art gallery, along with book clubs that take place regularly.
It's nearby my home, so I love that I can listen to lectures and enjoy my cultural life with people who live around here.
Compared to online stores, it's difficult for local bookstores to offer discounts or delivery services. So we decided to support residents with their group activities with our seminar rooms, the art gallery, and cafe, as well as author lectures. So we're trying to naturally draw people to our bookstore.
The space offers person-to-person interaction among local residents, something that cannot be found online.
The online era is an inevitable part of social change. Offline stores have to face online stores head-on, and they need to aggressively reinvent themselves by emphasizing the face-to-face aspect of things. They could open a store that has a study area for students, or offer something with a distinctive characteristic that online stores can't.
Online shopping is a welcome convenience for many people in Korea. With the change in times, offline stores are also reinventing themselves to put forth their strengths and attract more consumers.
And that wraps it up for today and this week. But we'll be back next week with more of the day's top business stories, so don't forget to check back with us then. Thanks for watching and see you soon.